All right, so we are going to go on and do this next part of the review. Okay, so this one, it wants us to graph this and state the transformations and the domain and the range, okay? So first of all, I'll just go ahead and do the transformations right off the bat. So remember, anything outside here moves the graph either up or down. So this is a vertical shift up 4, okay? Anything inside with x is going to move either left or to the right, but we lie to our x's. So instead of, you would think it would, the negatives would go to the negative x side, but really they're going to go to the positive. Really, that's like a +3. And so really we're going to have a horizontal shift to the right 3. Okay, it looks like it's to the left, but we lie to our x's, so it's right 3. Okay, and then some people get confused. They think this negative and the 2 are together, and it makes them think it's a compression, but it's not, okay? So it's two separate things, the negative and the 2. So let's look at the 2 first. So remember, anything outside of the radical affects the y values, or the vertical stuff, and anything inside the radical affects the horizontal stuff. So this is outside the radical, so it's going to be a vertical, and when you multiply by something, it's either a vertical stretch or compression or shrink, or however you phrase it. And for this one, because it's greater than 1, is going to be a vertical stretch. Okay, so we have a vertical stretch by 2. Okay, and then the last thing is the negative. And the negative in the front, what that does is a reflection over the x-axis. And that one you kind of just have to memorize. The negative in the front is a reflection over the x-axis, and then a negative inside, like if there had been a negative inside there, that's a reflection over the y-axis. Oops, there we go. So you kind of just have to memorize outside is the x, is reflection over the x-axis, inside is a reflection over the y-axis. And the way I kind of remember that is because remember, if you saw a negative on the x, God, keep doing that. If you saw a negative on the x, you would think, oh, it's on the x, so it's a reflection over the x. But remember, we lie to our x's, so it's really a reflection over the y. So that means the one on the outside has to be a reflection over the x. Okay, so now to graph this, okay, so I always start with my original parent function chart, and my parent function chart, remember, I just picked the values I could take the square root of. So I can take the square root of a 0, 1, 4, 9, and you can keep going, 16, but that's off the grid, so I'm going to stop at 9. And then the square root of those numbers are 0, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, but then we need to make a transformed graph, right? This one has moved to the right 3 and up 4, and it's been stretched and reflected. So we need to do that to our values, right? So let's think about it. Our x values, if we look in here, remember, moved right 3. So to move our x values to the right 3, we need to add 3 to them. Okay. All right, and then to move... So then my y's, they have a bunch of stuff going on. So they're being reflected, they're being stretched, and then they're moving up 4. And so everything on the outside goes to the y's, okay? So it kind of just turns into like a little equation, negative 2y plus 4. Okay, because we need to multiply our y's by 2 to stretch them, and multiply them by negative to reflect them, and then we add 4 to move them up, okay? All right, and then all we do from there is we take these values and we add 3 to all of our x values, and then we plug in these for y, right? And then these ones for x. So if we add 3 to all of our x's, that'll give us a 3, 4, 7, and 12. Okay, and for our y's, if we do 0 times negative 2 is negative 2, plus 4 is 4. If we plug in a 1, negative 2 times 1 is negative 2, plus 4 is 2. If we plug in a 2, negative 2 times 2 is negative 4, plus 4 is 0. And then last, if I plug in a 3, negative 2 times 3 is negative 6, plus 4 is negative 2. So you kind of just plug everything in. And then we'll just plot our points, right? So we have 3, 4, 4, 2, 7, 0, and then 12, negative 2 is off the grid. And then remember, our graph starts at that starting point and then kind of just goes off to the right in this case, okay? Okay, and make sure it doesn't go past that point. That's like the starting point. It doesn't go past it, okay? All right, and in the end, make sure it looks correct. Like, make sure it looks like it's moved to the right, moved up, reflected, and stretched. And this one does look like we did everything correctly, okay? All right, so for domain, domain for these are a little bit, they're not just negative infinity to positive infinity, because we don't go to these negative values at all, right? There are no negative values that we're going to over here. So the furthest left we go is to this x value here, which is at 3. That's the furthest that we go to the left. So we start at 3, and then it goes off to the right, so it's going to infinity. Okay, and then as far as the range goes, remember for the range you look down and up. So we see if it's going down and we see if it's going up. So it is going down, right? This is going down. It's going down very slowly, but it is going down. So it's going down towards negative infinity. And then the highest up it goes is 4. Okay? So, and you can see that here, right? That the highest up it goes is 4. All right, so that's that one. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the next one. Okay, so the next one is a cube root graph. So really the only thing that's going to be different is that you're going to start with a different chart, okay? But let's go ahead and do the transformations first. So remember, anything outside here moves up and down, so that's a vertical shift down 2. Okay, inside moves left and right, so that's going to be opposite, right? It's really going to be a positive one. So that's going to be a horizontal shift right 1. And then the only other thing here we have is a negative, or sorry, is a 1/2 in the front. And so remember, everything outside affects the vertical. So that's going to be a vertical. And this time it's a vertical shrink or compression, however you want to phrase it. So it's a vertical compression by 1/2. Okay. All right, so then if we start our charts, our original chart for a cube root graph is -8, -1, 0, 1, and 8. And over here, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so that's our original chart. So now for our new chart, we got to take our x values. Remember, you do the opposite, so we need to add 1 to them. Okay, and then everything on the outside affects the y's, right? So we'll have 1/2 y minus 2. Okay, so then we'll take all of our x values and we put them in here, and all of our y values and put them in here. So our x values, if we add 1 to them, will be -7, 0, 1, 2, and 9. Okay, and our y values are a little harder. We actually have to plug them in. So if we plug in a -2, -2 times 1/2 is -1, minus 2 is -3. Okay, -1, if we plug that in, -1 times 1/2 is -1/2, minus 2 is -2.5. 0, if we plug that in, 0 times 1/2 is 0, minus 2 is -2. If we plug in a 1, that's 1/2 times 1, that's 1/2, minus 2 is -1.5. And then last, 1/2 times 2 is 1, minus 2 is -1. Okay, so those ones were a little harder because we had that half there, but not so bad. Okay, and then we just plot it. So -7, -3 is here, 0, -2.5, 1, -2, to negative 1.5. So these are closer together because it's been shrunk, right? And then 9, negative 1. Okay, and then the way this graph looks, remember, it kind of like does like this swoop thing here. I didn't actually go through the point, but just pretend like I went through the point. All right, so that's that. Okay, and then for domain and range, so the domain for this one is negative infinity to positive infinity. It goes left, it goes right, it keeps going, so that means it's negative infinity to positive infinity. It's not like the square root graph where there's like this stop point, right? So this one just keeps going. And same thing for range. This is going down. It doesn't really look like it's going down, but it is. It's just going down very, very slowly. I mean, you can see it's going by like halves right here. So it's just going really, really slow. So it is going to negative infinity, and then this side is going up towards positive infinity. It's just going up really slowly. Okay? So those are those two. So go ahead and go to the next video for the next part.